Prologue. Draloos V brimmed with its usual natural beauty when the Starfleet team transported to the surface. It was simply unfortunate that the team had to isolate themselves from the planet's environment or risk death. That was no exaggeration because Draloos V had one of the most hostile environments known to the Federation. Its beauty belied the dangers that lurked at every corner of the ecosystem. But it wasn't because of any harsh environmental or planetary condition. A significant portion of the biosphere was actually classified as tropical, warm, humid, sunny, with plenty of moisture. Draloos V, by technical definitions, was Class M. It had an atmosphere of nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon dioxide similar to that of Earth, and sufficient water in its liquid state to support carbon-based life. But the terrifying wildlife on the planet had caused the Federation to raise safety awareness and protective measures. Anyone transporting to the surface of Draloos V was now required to wear a Class 3 biohazard suit, one of the Federation's safest protective gear. The suit was designed to completely isolate the individual from its environment, much like the one used for space. But this suit was specially designed to be bioprotective. It was able to keep out virtually all viruses and invasive microorganisms, airborne or otherwise. It was tough, so that no stinger or sharp object in the biological world could pierce the material. But the suit was thick. The headpiece had a huge clear glass-like dome, and overall it was just difficult to move around in. All three members of the team walked around clumsily, like they were the first explorers on the moon.
Why are we on this freaking planet again?
We're on a mission, remember? We need to find out what happened to the cargo ships. If they lose many more, they soon won't have enough biomatter to feed everyone on Draloos IV.
Fine. Let's just do this and get the hell out of here.
It's an important mission, Ray. Just think about all the families they need to feed.
Draloos IV was the sister planet of Draloos V, home to a large human populace that numbered just over 1 billion. The population used the biomatter of Draloos V to feed itself through means of converting the matter into useful energy. Trees, bark, grass, weeds, insects, empty shells, and even waste products were fair game as useful biomatter. The population of Draloos IV was deeply dependent on it because the planet itself had no means of creating its own energy supply. Draloos IV, unlike V, was Class K, a barren planet.
And remember who you're talking to, Lieutenant.
Yes, sir.
All vegetation on Draloos V was toxic. Any animal or mammal on Draloos V just passing by could suddenly collapse if it had unluckily gotten pierced by a poison thorn from a nearby bush. But that was the least of the team's worries. On Draloos V, as competition for food and energy became fiercer throughout the planet's evolution, some of the vegetation had actually evolved to hunt mammalian prey, and they were exceedingly aggressive about it. The Class M designation, despite being a more fitting designation from a technical standpoint, was soon changed to Class Z, or what some officers refer to as Demon World. Some officers who explored Draloos V died from poisonous materials, others were eaten alive by aggressive insects, and some just disappeared altogether. Needless to say, there were enough incidents to deter even the bravest of explorers.
Are we close to the coordinates of the cargo ship yet? We've been walking for over 20 minutes.
Should only be about 10 more minutes.
You'd think the chief could have transported us closer to our destination, rather than have us walk around this forsaken place.
You heard the chief before he landed us down here, Lieutenant. The distress signal was weak and scrambled. He could only get an approximate location from orbit. Just consider yourself lucky he didn't transport us farther away or near the water.
Yeah, well, still, we shouldn't have come here. How we doing, Ensign?
Just doing my job, sir.
Stay together, guys.
Ray continued to walk, reluctantly getting sucked into the beauty of the plant life. As he turned, Ray suddenly noticed that he began to veer off from the rest of the group, or they veered off from him. Great.
Lieutenant, we're only about 5 minutes away from the crash site, so get your ass back here.
Got it. Closing in on your location.
Ray heard a very light flutter behind him, as if a small flock of birds passed by him. Ray turned back, and there was nothing. Whatever, he thought, just get back with the rest of the group. At that moment, a small, bright, green butterfly landed on Ray's arms. Pretty, he thought. It flapped its wings slowly. Ray shook his arm to get rid of it, but it seemed sticky. Ray swatted at it with his other arm, and it flew away. Ray came across something. It was maybe 20 meters away, a white material or something. It was in the opposite direction of the team, but since it was clearly not part of the environment, Ray felt it important to investigate. He ran towards it. It was a thick white material, partially buried into the ground. He proceeded to dig it out, and the overall form of it began to take shape. He also noticed something attached near the center of the piece. It was corroded, difficult to make out, but the shape was unmistakable. It was a Starfleet comm badge. In that instant, Ray realized what he was looking at. It was the very same suit he was wearing. He managed to pull out the head dome out of the ground as well. But there was nobody. Did someone from the cargo crew come down and take their biohazard suit off? That seemed unlikely, given Starfleet's stern warning.
Commander, have our biohazard suits been cleared by Starfleet to use on this planet?
Yeah. Nobody who was transported here before with the Class 3 biohazard suit had any problems. Some of them have been here for days, even weeks. Others have been to a lot harsher planets with these babies on. You could practically walk through lava in this. Believe me, we're safe.
That made Ray feel marginally better. For all intents and purposes, the suit was indestructible.
Then I think you guys better come down here.
When Ray looked up, he noticed that the tree suddenly had fewer leaves on its branches. But it was hard to tell because it was so dark anyway. Maybe the leaves were just loose and flew off from a strong breeze, but Ray didn't remember any breezes coming through. And second, there were no leaves on the ground. What was unusual also was that the trees in the distance appeared to have their leaves intact. It was only the trees around him that had lost their leaves. As Ray walked a few more steps, he began to put two and two together. Were all of those leaves on the trees the butterflies he just saw? If that were true, that means there were a lot of them. And they were close by too, because he heard the flutter again. Ray pulled out his tricorder to try and analyze at least one of them, and see if they were in Starfleet's database of known species. But he really couldn't see any around him when he looked for them. It would be nice to know if they were hostile. Of course, nowhere in Starfleet's database of butterflies on any planet were any species labeled as dangerous. He heard the light flutter yet again. And this time, 2 butterflies landed on his arms, 1 on each arm.
Guys, do you hear me? You need to see this.
Yes, we hear you, Lieutenant. We're moving in on your location. Should be there in a couple of minutes.
3 more butterflies landed on him. He couldn't shake them. Get the hell off, he thought. They must have strong little legs. He swatted them right on his arm, killing them almost instantaneously, which was one way to handle them. Ordinarily, he wasn't supposed to interfere with the life forms there, let alone kill them. But to hell with Starfleet's regulations, he thought. The butterflies were starting to become annoying. He could hear more of them nearby. One by one, he swatted them, but they were beginning to catch up.
Guys?
Almost there. You in trouble?
Well...
Ray wasn't even sure how to answer, since they were just butterflies. And he was killing them left and right. They were beginning to pick up speed, but it was nothing that he couldn't handle. At that very instant, however, he felt something tingling on his arms, underneath the suit. It was causing sharp and needle-like pains on his skin that came and went and came again. As more butterflies landed on him, he felt more tingling. Were they biting? That was impossible. Even if they were secreting some sort of corrosive agent, it still couldn't get through the suit. And besides, as he looked at his arms, he saw no signs of any penetration anywhere. He felt more and more pain, covering a larger area on his arms, and reaching onto his torso and his legs. The tingling now felt like a burning. He felt a strong urge to look at what was eating away at him.
I need to get this suit off of me. I need to...
Lieutenant, are you all right? We're almost there.
But Ray was too distracted. The burning was starting to become unbearable and covering a larger and larger area of his body. He could almost feel the burning reach deeper into his flesh. The butterflies were overwhelming him, and he had stopped swatting at them. He didn't know what to do because the pain was becoming agonizing. He could feel something burning on his face now, and his eyes began to sting very badly. He couldn't even see outside, since his entire helmet was covered with the butterflies. As he stood there, gasping, he could begin to smell his own corroded flesh. He yelled,
Ah!
Ray! This is Commander Stevens of the USS Ion. Can you get a lock on Ray?
Yes, sir. but he's flailing around too much. It's going to take me a few seconds to...
Ray collapsed to the ground. His body was beginning to convulse, and he was now unconscious. By now, the swarm of green butterflies had completely covered him.
Get him out! Now!
I can't, sir. His mass. It's all over the place. There's nothing left to lock onto.
Commander Stevens finally arrived to the site. Though he couldn't see Ray's face, he was easy to spot because he was lit up brightly by the butterflies that enveloped him. Commander Stevens quickly pulled out his phaser and instructed Ensign John to do the same.
Setting 5. Wide dispersal pattern. Ready? Fire!
The wide phaser beams vaporized a sizable chunk of the butterflies, but most of them fled quickly and returned to the branches of the trees, where they passed off seamlessly again as normal leaves. Commander Stevens and Ensign John ran to Ray's body, but it was too late. Most of Ray's body, including much of his skeleton, had already been dissolved. What remained was partially digested tissue, and the sight of it made the commander very nauseous. But Ray's suit remained intact. Commander Stevens stepped closer to the trees and looked closely at the leaves. The veins were blood red, and they appeared to be pulsating. It looked like they were feeding the tree.